Your future is now. How can we make ourselves and our businesses future-proof? That's what I, Greet Bunners, ask my guests. Enjoy! Hi guys, I hope everybody's ready for the next episode in our Future is Now webinar series, podcast series. The idea of the webinar/podcast is talking about the future and how can we make ourselves and our businesses future proof. I started the podcast series in April 2020 in the early days of Corona with the idea, okay, these are troublesome times and changing times. So how can we learn from these times? What can we do during these times? And what can we do to make ourselves future proof? And I'm not the one with all the answers, of course, and that is why I have decided to invite inspiring guests with their view on the future so that we can have different angles on that specific topic, the future for businesses, but also for people who have a career and ask themselves, okay, what's the future going to be like? How can I make myself in this company future-proof? And how can I make myself as a person future-proof? And the guest of today is Piet Verhoeve. Welcome, Piet.
Hi, Greet. Good evening.
Hi. So are you ready?
Yes, definitely ready.
All right. Great. So Piet and I, we have known each other for a couple of years now. I think it must be 3 or 4 years, can't remember. We met in Ghent, and he was back in the day, I think he was working in Kortrijk on a specific assignment. In the meanwhile, we got to know each other a little bit better, and I discovered that Piet is really an expert in everything that has to do with innovation and everything that has to do with collaboration, working together. And these two topics are indeed extremely important when we are looking at the future. And that is why, of course, I am so happy to have Piet here among us to discuss the future with the glasses on, the glasses looking to innovation and collaboration. So, Piet, how did you become so interested in innovation collaboration? How did you get in that field?
Well, it's a long story. It goes back to it actually goes back to my childhood. From my parents, I really got this kind of healthy interest in new stuff. If we discovered new stuff, we also received the explanation of what it was about, and we were taught to think about it on its own. And during my engineering studies, it actually evolved even further on. And I still recall the day I decided to, at the end of my engineering studies, there was somebody that came to pitch and said, okay, after your engineering studies, you can do a PhD. And okay, we are talking the 90s. So I had never, ever heard before what a PhD was about. But actually what really triggered me to actually start it was the fact that it was about exploring a path that had not yet been explored before. I call it, for me, was the little inventor in myself that really wanted to do something that nobody had done before.
Okay.
And due to some changes and some occasional things that happened, it turned out to be a PhD in photonics. But the real thing for me was about innovation, was about doing new things. And during that research period, where at those days in the 90s, PhD was still a lot about doing academic research and figuring out new stuff, which was part of the challenge, of course. I also got to explore the really wide area and domain of international collaboration. I was actually very lucky to work on a lot of different European projects. Basically, I don't know if my wife was that happy at the time, but each month, at least 1 week, I was somewhere in a European country doing something for a project. And those two things actually shaped a lot of my future. The fact that you can indeed create new things, that you can solve with technology, find new solutions to bring them to the world and basically to build a better world afterwards, while at the same time, instead of doing everything yourself, and instead of trying to figure it out how to do it yourself, you can go a lot faster, a lot quicker if you are open to collaboration, because you can learn from another. You can pick what happens in one domain and then bring it to another domain. You don't have to learn everything yourself. You just ask somebody else, and together you can go a lot faster. And actually, that kind of let's say experience I brought then into industry, where I helped my first company where I worked. Actually, I was also on the international collaboration in my second company where I worked. It was really about installing innovation culture and helping the company through collaboration to reach a double-digit growth that lasted for more than a decade. And actually, I think the company today is still growing double-digit every year on the same level, and that's without in external investors. So it's really a great strategy if you want to go fast and grow and be future-proof with your applications.
Yes, and that's why it's of course a great opportunity to talk about it in this podcast, which is all about making ourselves and our businesses future-proof. Now, when we talk about innovation, I remember when I used to work in human resources. I've worked a long time in human resources, and then and it was maybe in the early 2000s. We had this idea. Okay, we have to innovate. Innovation is hot, etc. But we often had this great idea. Oh, if we want to innovate, let's have this box, and people can put their ideas in the box. You remember that, the idea box?
Yes.
So, and that was innovation for a lot of companies. I was an interim manager in HR, so I worked in lots of different companies, and everywhere they had this creativity innovation box, and that was their idea of being innovative. I guess that your view on innovation is slightly different.
Well, actually, the famous ID box, I have experimented with that as well, also in those early 2000s on their own. It's the best way not to innovate on its own, and actually there are a number of reasons. The first thing, if you really want to go into innovation, you also need ownership. And the mere idea of writing down an idea and then putting it in a box, and then somebody else has to decide yes or no or work with it, it's no ownership anymore. If it gets rejected, you have reasons to still believe it's a good idea and then say, okay, it's a process which is bad, or the idea is very small. Anyway, also you had this culture of rewarding the best idea, which basically makes so that even the employees in your own company don't work together anymore, because I want that prize for myself. I don't want to share it with a colleague on its own. So actually, you're hindering a lot of aspects for innovation and definitely for progress. I think to come back to what is innovation, there are tons of definitions on it, and also during my installation of the innovation culture in that company. We also had this, we first focused on new stuff and research with academia and so on. And after a few years, there was this kind of notion that innovation, you had to do new stuff, almost Nobel Prizes before it was kind of innovative, which is bullshit, of course. Innovation is actually very easy to define. Innovation is making a change to your product, your service, or to the world that brings brings additional value. And both aspects are important. It's changing something, but equally important, it's bringing value, because value is what your customers are going to pay for. Value is what society will like your innovation for, yes or no. So just being new, like you have in fashion, where next summer there will be a new color scheme to be applied by everybody, that's not really innovation, because it's seldomly just doing that brings value to the aspect. You need both aspects, change and value.
Yeah, and I can imagine that it can be even worse than calling the new look or trend in fashion an innovation. Because a good friend of mine works in a very large international company, and we were talking a couple of weeks ago about innovation, and he said, yeah, so he works in the construction firms, everything that has to do with insulation, etc. And he said, yeah, but for it's something that the top in France has decided. So in France, they decided, okay, we've got a couple of KPIs, and innovation is one of them. And so top down, everybody has to work on innovation. But it becomes more like, okay, we have to do something on innovation because we've got these KPIs, and if we don't have a green flag, then yeah, that's not good for our bonus or whatever. So what the effect of all that is that they take their products and they change sometimes something ridiculous, like a new packaging or whatever, and then they call it innovation. Like, oh, okay, it's something new, we call it innovation. The packaging has changed, or the logo or the color or whatever has changed, and then suddenly it's innovation. And I guess that's not also, and that's a lousy example, of course, of innovation.
But sometimes innovation can be actually very, very, can look silly if you look back to it. Just consider the whole innovation we had in the past decades, creating light food products. In most cases, creating a light version of a product means either adding water or adding air. That's basically what they do. But you bring value because you still have the taste, and that's the balance. You still have the taste. You can sell it at a higher price because the consumer wants the taste with less calories. So the combination change and value is there still. Same can happen with new packaging. If the packaging makes it a lot easier to use or a lot better for the environment to work with, that can be value and change as well. If it is, of course, you're just changing the color scheme on a packaging, okay, then I really would doubt.
It was like that. It was like that. So
that's why I definitely say you need both components, change and value. And if you have value without change, it can be very valuable, but it's seldom innovation. It can be just copying somebody else. Or if you have change but no value, then probably you won't be able to sell it anyway.
Yeah, the thing is when it becomes like, okay, we have to innovate or we have to reach that goal, that it becomes more like a thing in itself, and that we forget often, why are we doing this? What is indeed the value for the customer or for the company or the planet or whatever, but what is the added value? And we sometimes forget it, and then it's just innovating, and if we don't have any creative idea, okay, let's change the color of the packaging of the product.
Yeah, and then it goes back, and I think that's also one of the important things for innovation. If as a company, whether you're big or just small, and even a one-person company can do on innovation, but it's about thinking about the change and about the value, and it's really being innovative. Yes or no has more to do with installing a culture in your environment rather than setting KPIs. KPIs can be good to monitor, but you don't change culture with setting KPIs. One of the great indicators for me for an innovative mindset is actually answering a very simple question. Just think for yourself for a few minutes, when was the last time you did something for the first time in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask that question to a number of people, in most of the cases, if it is really innovative, open mindset people that are figuring out a number of new things and seeing tons of opportunities, it will be something in the range of 1 maximum to 3 days. Whereas other people who are more in routine and doing always the same thing and not being innovative at all, sometimes it can even be 5 months that they never did anything for the first time. And I'm not talking about technical or product. It's really a very basic question.
Mm-hmm.
When did you try something for the first time in your life? Can be a new recipe, can be try to cook differently, can be to barbecue, to walk, to run barefoot, or whatever. But it's about trying and exploring new things. And that brings the mindset of being open to new opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so my question to you, Piet, what was your last thing that you did for the first time? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting one. Yesterday, I had a training course, a VIP training course for a very limited number of CEOs on how to create an innovative collaboration mindset. And instead of preparing it the normal way, you make slide set and you make handouts and so on, I basically said to myself, okay, we are a very small setting. Let's do a master class at the fireplace. So actually 4 CEOs in sofas, I as well in the sofa, and then we did everything just out of the head with just a few notes in how to reach the structure. And was great as experience. It was way intense, but it was a great experience to do on the first time, and I'm definitely going to do it again in the future. But for me, that's an indicator. I check for myself when do we get there? How do we go there?
Yeah. I like to do new things all the time too. Maybe too much. So for me, it's not that difficult either to figure out. I've got lots of examples from the last week even. But so you were talking there about this. So this setting with the 4 CEOs, and you were saying, okay, how can we create an innovation mindset? Is that correct?
Actually, that was a combination, merely actually for not so much focusing on the innovation mindset, because that was not a real need of the CEOs. They were already at a decent level with respect to innovation, but actually really focusing on how can we create a collaboration mindset, which is slightly different than a pure innovation thing. Innovation, if you do it just on your own in an island, you can end with the famous not invented here syndrome, which basically means that you will discard anything unless you as a company have built it yourself. One of the problems, for instance, that Philips had in the late 90s, they didn't want to, they wanted to research and innovate everything by themselves. It worked from time to time. The CD player is a great example how they developed and worked it, but they needed to collaborate to go to a standard. Otherwise, they would have left the market anyway. And so the masterclass was really about, if I'm going to think about collaboration, where do I find opportunities to collaborate? How do I pitch a collaboration project to a potential partner? How do I set up a partnership? Because there are tons of ways to kill partnerships. The best myth that which is actually around everywhere on collaboration is the typical statement we learn in project management, and that is, let's put all the stakeholders around the table.
So you don't do that.
Great, but actually it's the best way to have a lot of people talking to each other, blah blah blah, and nothing goes ahead. It doesn't kick off. You end up you end up with a compromise, And a compromise in most cases is basically, as it's normally said, compromises can be the solution where everybody agrees that they are unhappy but agree anyway to do it. Whereas my strong belief, and that's the methodology I developed in the past decades, is that you can build, if you take it from the right angle, you can build from the start collaborations where there's basically a guarantee that 1 + 1 is going to be bigger than 3 in the end. It's not about 1 + 1 is being bigger than 2. For me, it's about being bigger than 3 in the end. And if you take it in the right steps with the right mindset and apply a number of methodologies, you can get there with a lot of guarantees. Like you can do experimenting on how to manage a project and how you should deliver or build a house. Or you can go to school, take a project management course, and learn how to manage complex projects instead of trying it for 5 years or 10 years and then figuring out what the best way is. Same can go for collaboration.
So and indeed, we've talked about innovation, and then smoothly we are talking now about the collaboration stuff. So that's for me also interesting. And before we go into the how you go about finding the right partners, or how you go about collaborating, and how do you avoid killing a collaboration, my question is, why would you collaborate? I get an idea, of course, and who should collaborate? Should everybody try to find partners in order to collaborate, or is that a specific kind of people / companies? What's your view on that?
My view, and it's not my view alone, it's really a shared view with a lot of people in the world, is that actually the age of the era of the very monolithic, very big companies, that's gone. It's gone, and it will not return in the future. What we now need is really collaborations. It's some people use it ecosystem and terminology like that. There is a big debate on whether or not ecosystems are indeed ecosystems and not, but that's academic debate. I bring it back to collaboration. And why would you need collaboration in this era? Is basically because the world is changing at a tremendous rate. And I'm not talking about the famous COVID period we had in the past 2 years that drastically changed the number of things. But if you just look at it, most of the things change very quickly. Most people don't remember that the iPad is only a decade old. A tablet, the first iPad was introduced in 2010. So that's very close by on its own. And the next generation is going to change equally fast in the future. So basically you have two choices. Either as an entrepreneur or as a company, you can try to figure everything out yourself, and then I can guarantee you will be late on the market. Or you can figure out with whom could I collaborate to solve a problem and be better and faster at the same time. And it feels counterintuitive for a lot of people because all of us were trained with the famous DIY and African proverbs. The DIY statement on what you do yourself is typically been done better. You hear it on each DIY channel. I can guarantee you, okay, if I do DIY, I tend to think for myself that sometimes it's better. My wife is definitely convinced that it's going to be slower. That's a guarantee on its own. Same with the African proverb. It says, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. Kind of suggesting that far is going to be slower than doing things alone.
Yeah.
In the internet era, that's no longer the case. In the internet era, it's basically the reverse. Unless you collaborate, you will be slow. That's my belief. And on the other hand, it also has a big, I think it has a big societal value as well, because as you know, a lot of people, and especially the young generation now, is all about changing the planet and finding purpose and having purpose beyond just earning a job or a salary and so on. And I think it's great that they first have the luxury to be in that area instead of fighting how to survive on their own. But just think of it. If you have one big company with 1,000 employees, which is highly optimized, it's very easy to pick that company and bring it up and put it in a different country down or a different continent. Okay, it will take a year to do the transfer, but in 1 year, 1,000 people lose their job and they go back, and somewhere else, 1,000 people get a job. If that same company would not be one company with 1,000, but maybe 10 companies with 100 employees, or maybe even better, 100 companies with 10 employees, it would be very difficult to delocalize all of them, because definitely one of the entrepreneurs would not want to move, which makes it more acceptable, more sustainable for society, and so on. So it's on many levels that collaboration can work. And if you look again at the previous century, the only way you could get highly efficient was to become a very big monolithic company. That was the way to attain efficiency. Today, with the internet and all the technologies we have, you don't need to become 1,000 employees big to become efficient. You can collaborate very efficiently just through internet technologies with very small companies, all of them building a chain of your solution. So that's really the big societal change which is coming as well. And as an entrepreneur, whether you're one person a company, or whether you're a 10-person company, or even when you are a big corporate, collaboration is definitely the way to go to the future.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, when you are saying, and I want to go deeper into that, but when you are saying, yeah, well, the big companies, it's something for the past, and it's something that I also believe and that I hope that will come true. But when you look at the Amazons of this world, or even Facebook, etc., they are huge, and it feels like they only want to grow. Isn't that a contradiction to what you are saying?
That's an interesting thought on its own. Yes, definitely, the big tech companies are big. That's one thing.
And they buy all these smaller companies. So yeah,
and
indeed, we can in my garage I can invent some or maybe some great app. But if it goes really well, poof, it's bought. If I'm lucky, it's bought by
Let's say that's a different way of doing business. It's I won't say that buying companies is the best way for collaboration. I prefer not to be bought and collaborate on other things on its own, but it's basically a different way of doing business on their own. And especially the big companies, even the Facebooks, the Amazons, and the Googles, they first have to collaborate with tons of companies in order to being able to buy one or two out of them on their own. So it's on different levels that you have to work. And also a small company can collaborate with a big company without needing to be bought in order to do things. You can typically take the example or let's say the comparison. Big companies and a big company, even a Facebook and Amazon and Google, they know it from themselves. They have achieved big size, which means that with the big size also comes a big inertia. It's like a very big ship. Take an oil tanker. an oil cargo ship, it's great. It can do tons of things, or a big container ship, it can transport tons of stuff across the sea. But even just to change course or just to stop, it can take 20 kilometers between shutting down the engines and actually stopping to stand still on the run. Whereas small companies, these are the speedboats. That's where the interesting stuff is happening on its own. And in innovation landscape, that's very well known. Great companies are great at, or big companies are great at scaling innovation, bringing it up to world scale, or doing process innovation, which is basically what Amazon is doing. They're changing the process in how to deliver and how to sell, but they are not changing the products. That's being done by small companies on their own. That's the speedboats who are doing it on their own. And you have some entrepreneurs that don't want to become a big company. They just scale a company to a certain size, and then they hope some investor will take it over to bring it to the rest of the world. And that investor can indeed be an Amazon or Google and so on. So that's a different way of doing business.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, we've got the two maybe, and the two can work together. Now, you were saying another thing that, or I don't know if you were saying that, but I was thinking it anyway. Something that is really outdated. First of all, of course, trying to do everything by yourself. That's so 20th century. The second thing that I feel, and I'm still maybe a little bit naive when it comes to that, but I like being naive, is the fact that killing the competition, crushing the competition is also something so that I feel is so outdated. It's not yet outdated, but I hope it will be outdated very soon. I strongly feel, and that's my naive side, I think, I strongly believe that we can collaborate even if we are so-called competitors. But are we really competitors if we have the same mission? And isn't it better that if we, for instance, if there's two business coaches, me and somebody else, and we aim to help our Belgian entrepreneurs grow with their business, etc., are we really competitors? And isn't it better to focus on how can we deliver more value to the end customer instead of competing with each other the whole time? Because competing the whole time, then you're focused on each other instead of on your client. Okay, this may be a little bit black and white, but I think it's been a really something that hurt a lot of companies, a lot of people, a lot of customers, etc. That whole competition game, and that we finally are arriving in an era where we must see that collaboration is so much better than competing with each other. What's your view on that?
Well, there are a number of nuances in the question. Let me start with the first one. If you're really a full competitor of each other, collaboration in most cases is difficult.
Yeah, you have to have the mindset, of course.
Yeah, you have to have the mindset, but even a full and I mean full competitor, and with full competitor, I really mean building the same product or service for the same customer in the same region at the same price, targeting actually fully the same identical thing. That's full competitor. What I see today is that a lot of companies think of themselves that they are competitors, but they are working in different geography regions. Or one is focusing on coaching beginners, where the other one is focusing on coaching the really expert to top level expert thing. Then you're no longer that much a real competitor in bringing it together. Competitors can work together even if they are full competitors, but that's a very specific niche on its own. So I would like to put that one aside. The second thing that you were saying is about is really this mindset of beating the competition, of crushing the competition, or whatever war type of language you want to use on it. in my opinion, it's something that we inherited with the economic view of the world from the past century. There are economic principles on scarcity, and if something has become scarce, then it becomes valuable, and so on. Okay, the theories are there, they have their value. The only side effects I seem to see in practice is that a lot of people think that economy or bringing products or services on the market is actually a zero-sum game. Meaning that the only way I can grow is by taking something away from somebody else. And if you look at the practice on a global scale of economics, that's in most cases not the case. It's not a zero-sum game. What we have seen in the past decades is actually that let's say in Dutch we say the cookie has become bigger each time. And collaboration is about that. It's about making the cookie or the cake, the economic cake, bigger, rather than try to figure out how to cut a small cookie in even smaller pieces on their own. And you should never forget that that also collaboration can create very new stuff, great innovation. Just look at the stupid combination of Douwe Egbert's coffee brand that worked together with an electronics company, Philips, and Senseo was born. Now, whether or not Senseo is the greatest coffee in the world, I won't open that debate, but it at least brought a reasonable amount of coffee at a reasonable quality accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah, sure, indeed. Yeah.
So even from very strange combinations, you can get new, very interesting and valuable stuff.
Yeah, and I guess indeed that what you are saying is okay. Working with a full-blown competitor and working together in a collaboration might be a little bit difficult, but indeed, are we really competitors? I mean, it's very difficult to find a full-blown competitor because there's always something different, of course. What the thing is also, it goes back to Darwin, who wrote the paper there, or the book, the survival of the fittest. Actually, it was called the survival of the strongest, and it started the whole idea that it's the strongest who will survive, and so all the rest will die, for instance.
Actually, the statement of Darwin is the one that will survive is the one which is most adapted to the changing environment. And collaboration is a great way to adapt really fast.
And that's important. It's the adaptation, is being able to adapt to the changing environment, the resilience, resourcefulness, etc. Those are the things that are important. And it's not because you're the strongest that you will survive. It's the one who is more adaptable and who is able to find the resources necessary. And when we're talking about resources, of course, we are also talking about these collaborations. You can't do it all alone. But I think it's a very important idea, and that some people see wrongly, being it's the strongest that will survive.
I sometimes call it a romantic notion. It's like natural selection. This is also some kind of very romantic notion. Everybody thinks it's about selecting, and there's one solution selected spontaneously as the best way. In most cases, natural selection means killing everything which does not fit. It also means, in innovation terms, if you want to have a great idea, you need to kill 999 other ideas. And which means that you need to build a culture to make the failure acceptable, not because you want to fail, not because you need to fail, but because of the fact that failing, accepting, and learning out of the failure is a great way to go ahead. There's no such thing as natural selection without killing. And that's the kind of a problem I have also with a lot of people today talking about ecosystems. And they put this image, an ecosystem, a Google ecosystem or the Facebook ecosystem or whatever. And in most cases, the ecosystem is one big company and then smaller ones working in between, and nobody dies. And then it's a great ecosystem. But if you look at real ecosystems in nature, there's always somebody that dies, and it comes with the process. So actually, also in economic terms, if you have an ecosystem and nobody dies, then probably it's something else, but not a real ecosystem on its own.
Okay, but that is part of life, of course. Now, and that's an interesting also one. It's also in personal growth, which is one of my topics. And actually, when you grow, it's like a spiral that goes up, and sometimes you start with something, so you invent something or you start something, like for instance a product or a business, and then you grow and you grow, it becomes mature, and then you have to destroy it. It has to destroy itself, or you have to destroy it for you to be able to grow to the next level. And a good example is from my and you've known my collaboration with my former business partner. So we started something great, the Business Boost event. We grew it into something really fantastic. But at a certain moment, we had to destroy the relationship and the business, because we needed, my colleague and myself, we needed to go to the next level, and we needed to grow, and we couldn't do that together. So we needed to die or destroy that relationship in order to be able to grow. She went her way, I went my way, but we both grew personally and business-wise, etc. Thanks to the depth of that company.
Actually, that's something which was already described very early on in the past century by a guy who was called Schumpeter, who is talking about creative destruction. And it's really about, if you want to jump to the next curve instead of just being incremental better, at a certain point, you need to drop in performance, you need to destroy, and then you can jump to the next curve and bring it to the next one. Just think of it. We had, if you take a typical example, everybody knows photo cameras to take pictures. They were getting better and better with the celluloid film. At a certain point in time, it jumped the curve because we got cell phones with very lousy, crappy cameras. But they were great because we always had them. We could always take a picture. It was a crappy picture, but it was not about the quality of the picture. It was about retaining the memory, the essence of the moment. It's a different value chain that you're addressing. And once that one was jumped into, you saw cameras getting better and better again. Whereas today, a typical iPhone or a flagship Samsung device basically has a camera with a lot of electronics and software in it that can, for a number of applications, and actually for most applications of most people, compete with the big traditional camera. And it's only the professional market that was left over with the big cameras. So that creative destruction and changing and jumping processes and curves is a very typical thing in innovation. And collaboration can help you to either to widen up the scope, to help you really see that you're reaching the limits and have to put in more and more effort just to have maybe 1% additional value, or maybe 0.5%, and you need to put in 100% more effort. Whereas then destroying, as you mentioned, destroying and jumping to the next curve can really relaunch a new aspect. But of course, to some extent it's a leap of faith. It's a process that you need to accept. And collaboration is a way to make the process less risky than you would do it all by yourself. because I fully understand if you are an entrepreneur and you have an existing business with existing customers, with an existing product, and they deliver you 10 million euros a year every year with a 20% profit margin or even more. It feels very uncomfortable to say to those customers, no, we won't serve you anymore, or we'll do something new on its own. So that's a leap of faith, but there are innovation processes, there are collaboration methodologies that can help you to make that leap of faith more as a process, as a transition, rather than just jumping off a cliff and hoping that there is water at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, I see that. And so what you are talking now, the process and how to do it and what not to do, how to kill collaborations, etc. Are that the topics that you talk about in your book, in the WinWInnovation book?
Yes, that's actually what I did. So basically, I wrote this one, which is called WinWInnovation, and it's now coming out in English. Mm-hmm. It's really it's about 2 decades of experience on how to do it put into one book. Mm-hmm. And if the book is not enough, I have trainings and coaching sessions available as well to really help you get there, because I want to make the world a better place. And I strongly believe that collaboration is a great way to get there. Mm-hmm. On their own. Because, and actually it was also my reason why I wrote the book. I really wrote the book because after the 2 decades of experimenting and experiencing it myself, I basically could kind of make a prediction. This collaboration is going to be great. That one is going to be crappy. Actually, we should never explore that one. It's never going to work on its own. And I could make that prediction. I could do it in the first meeting of the partners. So not even with the topic defined and so on. In the first meeting, I could kind of have a feeling on how can it work or can it not work, or how can we make it work and doing it on its own. And basically, I was tired to do the explanation every time myself, with one consortium at a time, with one partner at a time. And that's why I wrote the book, in the hope that everybody would read it and fully understand it. In the meantime, I've noted that the book is a great explanation and brings a lot of valuable tools, but a lot of people like additional training and coaching on top of it to do. So I'm adding that one now.
But that's great. So that's great. So when you were talking about the fact that even in the first meeting, you can almost sense and predict that one collaboration is gonna be great and the other one is gonna suck. What is one big thing that you should not do, or what is one big major reason for collaborations to fail? Is there one, or are there plenty, or what's?
There are tons of collaboration killers. Actually, I'm starting a series now on how to kill collaboration, just to explain a number of myths. One of the great ways to kill collaboration, or at least to make collaboration very difficult, which was also confirmed in the training I had yesterday with the 4 CEOs, is actually what everybody has been taught from courses in change management and project management and so on, is put everybody at the same table. Yeah. Involve all your stakeholders. That's the best way to have first of all, you need a very big table in most cases. With COVID, it even needs to be bigger on its own, but it's the best way to have a lot of people chatting, a lot of arguments, a lot of opinions and going around and not making any progress. Mm-hmm. Especially if you have people around the table which are still in the I want to crush the competition mindset. Yeah. Or even put it differently, everything you gain, mm-hmm. whether or not I have paid for it, is my loss. And that's a very anti collaboration.
It's a scarcity mindset.
Pity people that have that view on the world. Mm-hmm. If really every success of somebody else you perceive as a loss for your own, then it's a very sad world to live in. But still, I see people in that mindset. You need to
I
go
guess.
and bring it open.
Mm-hmm.
And there are ways to create openness. One of the metaphors I typically use, or let's say another killer is that everybody needs to have the same view. Everybody needs to have the same goal. All noses in the same direction. We know all the quotes and statements. All noses in the same direction. It's the best way to have only competitors at the table.
Yeah.
Because they want to have the same product for the same people at the same price in the same region and with the same technology and so on, which makes it difficult. It's perfectly okay not to want the same thing and still being able to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Just think of a very basic form of collaboration. It's a hitchhiker. If I'm leaving my hometown and I'm passing Kortrijk and I'm driving to my destination in Antwerp, I can collaborate with a hitchhiker that wants to go to Brussels. We can collaborate until Ghent. I have somebody in my car. I'm not driving alone. He's not standing in the rain. All tons of value that we can bring into the collaboration. And we agree, okay, from Kortrijk to Ghent, we collaborate in the car. And then each of us, I go to Antwerp, he goes to Brussels. That's how it's work. It's not because we collaborate that we really need to have the final destination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. So it also means that, you don't have to go in the same direction and you don't have to do everything at the same time together. So it's possible that it's okay. Maybe I'm going to collaborate in this area with that guy or that company, and in that area with that guy in that company. And along the way, I'll have new collaborations. And in the end, I reach my goal and they have reached their goals.
Yeah, that's actually what is happening. It's in the book, I use the metaphor, in order to collaborate successfully, you need to build walls. And it's not about physical walls or shielding that I'm talking about. It's really because I have the image of different bricks in the wall that actually help you to reach the destination. Mm-hmm. And each combination of bricks is a way to do collaboration. And there are different forms, and the more different forms you deploy, the better you get at collaborating. And the easier it will be to reach your own destination that you have in mind. Mm-hmm. It's not about compromise, meaning not getting there where I want to get. It's about reaching my targets while collaborating and helping you to reach your targets at the same time.
Yeah. So when I bring it back to maybe more like my audience, the smaller companies, the one size companies, a woman or man shows. If we want to collaborate, so for instance, let's take a simple example for me. Okay, I want to help entrepreneurs grow personally with their business, etc. And I like giving training, but I don't like to do it all by myself because, for instance, I do not have all the skills and competencies. So let's say that I know that my clients could benefit from sales skills and sales training. Then I could collaborate with my friend Peter, for instance, on a sales training. And then Peter is happy because we have this sales training together. And then, but he's still working on his own company. And then I have this collaboration, but I'm working on my oown company. But for this training, we work together, and that's a collaboration.
Yeah,
but that does not mean that we have to
it
marry.
It means you have identified, let's say, kind of a common need with your common customers. Mm-hmm. And it's even if you go shopping, it's very visible in our daily life if you know where to look for it. Actually, it has been a strategy for several years from Schoenentorfs. So basically, they sell shoes. Mm-hmm. And they noted they really, when they did customer research, they figured out that most of their customers were also customers at YBC, which is a clothing brand. And if you just think of it, in most cases, you go buy a new outfit for maybe a party or something, or a children's party. And once you have the new outfit, you need new shoes anyway. And just next time you go out shopping, just check it out. In most cases, Torfs and YBC or Torfs and a different clothing brand, they are co-located on the same site.
Okay.
That's also a shape of collaboration, which is kind of similar, like you collaborating with a different offering on how to build it. If when I do my collaboration trainings and I would detect a need on personal branding type of aspects, I would just call you to say, can we do something together? And let's just try ones out. If it works, okay, maybe we can make a series out of it. But that's how to do it. If I would have to learn all the personal branding skills myself, I would be busy forever. I would never get there even to compete with anybody on the market.
Yeah. And the second thing is also that it does not mean if you work together on a certain project, and if it works well, then we can repeat it. But that does not mean that we have to do everything together. It does not mean that we have to do everything together for the rest of our lives or our business lives. No, we can perfectly work together on a certain project, maybe in the long run even. But that does not mean that you can't do anything else, and I can't do anything else, etc., etc. And I think that is also a very important thing for my customers and my audience and the people who are listening or watching, is that when we're talking about collaborations, it can also be these one-shot collaborations that can work perfectly. It does not mean that you have to marry or create a common company or whatever. So you can collaborate, and then you see what comes out of it. And I think that lots of people are really afraid to start this collaboration. Yeah, but I don't want to marry with that. I don't want to marry that person or whatever, so to speak. But that's not the intention. That's not.
Yeah, that's definitely not the case. And I think it's because a lot of people have already heard about, if you want to do collaboration, you need a strong contract and you need to safeguard your intellectual property and all that type of stuff. And okay, for some applications that's necessary. For some things it's important.
Yeah.
But I have great examples of even long-lived collaboration with plenty of partners where there is no contract whatsoever. And they still collaborate. Even after a decade, they are still collaborating.
Yeah.
The key difference is that in that area where those different companies and it's even profit and non-profit working together, which is even more strange on its own. In that, let's say, in that environment, I would not even call it an ecosystem because nobody dies. It's an environment. In that environment, what we did in the past decades is really to build on the collaboration skills, to build on the trust, to get to that level. And the net result is a very unique thing, which is recognized also in the world as being unique and great in terms of output on its own, and it's ruled by trust instead of contracts. And for me, that's a very positive image to the future, that you can actually do that. It could probably put some attorneys out of work, but then again, I think there is this famous book which has been around now for some time that actually states in Dutch, de meeste mensen deugen, or otherwise put, most people are actually trustworthy on their own. It's something a lot of us seem to forget from time to time, that actually most people do have good intentions and are not going to kill or make use of you or kill collaboration on their own. It's opening up again. It's at really accessing that skill again to bring it to the next level.
Yeah, and I mean what you're saying is so important, and trust is very important. I call myself sometimes naive because I like to trust people, but it's so much more fun to live in a world where you trust people than to have to live in a world where you do not trust people at all.
Yeah, it's
So,
even mathematically it's shown if you do mathematical simulations on the famous let's say how to do. There are simulations on negotiation base, and it turns out that on the long term, negotiations that are based on the first rule, always trust the other party and only tit for tat if they hurt you, is the most successful way anyway to do business. So even from a mathematical point of view, you can make it so that it works.
voila.
But somewhere we lost that kind of notion.
Yeah, but it's I think it's also it's related to what we've already said. It's the scarcity mindset. It's thinking that if I win something, you have to lose something, and the strongest and the fittest will survive, and everybody else will not survive. So it's those ideas that we've been brought up with, and that makes us, of course, some of us at least, a little bit more cautious. But I believe that when it comes to collaborations, okay, you've got the structure and you've got the steps and you've got good tips and tricks, etc. And that we can read all that in your books, and we can ask you for advice, consultancy, or training, or whatever. But besides all that, which is, of course, very, very important, what is also important is the mindset. And if you have a very fixed mindset focused on lack of confidence in others, lack of trust, if you're not open to change and you do not like new things, etc., it will become very, very difficult to have a successful collaboration, I think, and it will also be very difficult to be very innovative if you do not like change and you're not open to it.
Yeah, but the great thing is that people think that mindset is fixed, and actually it's not. You can develop a new mindset. It takes time. You can get in a new mindset. You can, instead of solving a lot of problems and becoming a problem spotter or a problem searcher, you can trigger and train your mind again to become an opportunity spotter.
Yeah.
To answer a question why or a no question, answer it with a why not question. What would happen if we would do it?
Yeah.
Would we really die, all of us, or maybe something nice could happen in the place?
Yeah.
It's something you can train on. It's not. I'm a strong believer that people can evolve and that even a mindset can change. Of course, the more closed, the more, let's say, killer competitive type of mindset you have, the more effort it will take to become open-minded, innovation and collaboration oriented. But it works. You can do it.
But I think you're totally right. I mean, Carol Dweck has written a great book about the fixed and the growth mindset. It's called Mindset, I think, the book, or Growth Mindset or Mindset, can't remember. Carol Dweck, and it's clear that it's not a black and white scenario either. I mean, it's not like you're 100% fixed mindset or 100% growth mindset. There's a lot of gray in between. But the good news is indeed, you're lucky if you're a little bit more on the growth mindset side, of course. But the good news is indeed that people with a fixed mindset are able to evolve towards a growth mindset if they put the effort in it and if they believe in it. And that's I think it's a great thing to know, because we need a growth mindset if we want to collaborate and innovate in life.
I would even say we need a growth mindset if we want to survive, have our business survive the next decades.
Yeah, and not only survive but also thrive, and that's important too. So I think that it's a perfect ending and a perfect positive ending to our interesting conversation on collaboration and innovation. It's the fact that don't worry, everything is possible if you do it in the right way and you have the right mindset. Then there is a bright future for you. And if we want to know more about how to do all that, then we can read your book. It's in English, as you said.
Yes,
It will come out soon.
As of this week, it's in English published as well.
All right. In Dutch and in English, so that's great. And if people want
the Dutch version, which is still available.
Yeah.
On Bol, but English version WinWInnovation with subtitle Forge Ahead Through Smart Collaboration is available on Amazon.com, Amazon.nl, or whatever Amazon flavor you want to access it.
All right, great.
Say that it's even with Prime delivery available. So.
Fantastic. Well, I'm gonna put the links in the fields below the video. Where can people reach you if they want to know more about your work, about your books, about your trainings and whatever?
Yeah, I have my own website, which is called the name of my company, which is called Origanius. So Origanius with an A, not an E, on its own. And it really has to do with my other interests. I'm also, one of the ways I like to relax is really to cook and to bake. And I think with collaboration and with my coaching on innovation, I can be the oregano spice for your company to bring it there. So that's the link on the company name, Origanius.com.
Well, I'm looking forward next time that we see each other face to face. It's been a while, but the next time that we see each other face to face, I hope that you bring me some cookies or a cake or whatever, because I've never tasted your.
That's a deal, and I'm always very serious about cookies and cake. So.
Okay, well, it was super great having you, Piet. It was an interesting conversation. I really like the topic innovation, collaboration, mindset, and everything. So I hope that the audience also liked it a lot. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channels, and please give some remarks, some feedback if you liked it, and what your opinions are on the topic. Piet, very much. Thank you very much. I really loved it, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to go to my website gereedbunnens.be, where you can find loads of free stuff like videos, articles, audios, lots of fun stuff. Thank you. Bye-bye.